Welcome to episode 14, kids, of season 3 of the Sunday Extra podcast.
It's 15.
Is it 15? Welcome to season 3, episode 15, kids. I can read my notes. One of the cool things that they teach you in school is how to read. And I've passed a lot of school, so I know how to read, but not the morning.
Really good.
So here we go. Here we are. So I guess where I got sort of maybe tripped up is we didn't have an episode last week. I think you were asking, did anyone miss the fact that we didn't post one? And the answer is yes. I figured out what the ulterior motive is.
Okay.
But someone said, hey, I noticed you all didn't drop an episode. What's the haps? And I said, well, we were all trying to get out of town, which is something that we'll talk about here in just a little bit, why we were trying to get out of town. We did not rob a bank. We were doing something very honest and above board for Jesus. But then I think they were trying to put together questions for their small group, and they were basing it off some of what we talk about in the podcast. So they were like, someone did miss us.
They missed us.
They did. They missed us.
It's nice to be missed.
It is good.
I mean, I wasn't here, so I was fully expecting the whole episode to be, like something you said, Jeremy, this summer when we were all gone is, well, Matt's not here, so we can do whatever we want.
There you go.
But you guys chose to do nothing. You did whatever you wanted, and you took the day off.
That is exactly what we wanted to do.
Now I understand.
Because we were trying to get out of town. Let's see. So, but a lot has happened since episode 14, which was going to be never mind, doesn't matter. I won't get into the math of it. So, one of the things that happened, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, Luke became a Jedi. No, Luke passed his Master of Divinity degree along with our producer Rachel's husband. We have the Antioch Project, which is a 5-year training program. Then, if you really want to go all in, there's a Master Divinity degree with a Canadian seminary that we partner with. And I guess it doesn't add another year unless you just want it to, but it takes what is the Antioch Project, and then they call it Immerse. They have a lot of programs that are in this Immerse category. Antioch Project is one of them, and then you have the opportunity to graduate with Masters of Divinity degree, which I think means that you can now sign Master whenever you sign your name on a Chili's receipt.
Master
you
Luke.
can say Master Luke.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where the Jedi
you have to wear. Yeah, you have to wear like the robe around all the time.
You never had to be a Padawan. Look at you. You never had to have that weird rat tail braid.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. Yes.
But I think part of it is I had to be a Padawan. That program has like mentorship embedded in it. And so.
But without
so that would make you Obi-Wan Brian.
Yeah.
As one of
Obi Brian.
Obi Brian.
Obi Brian.
It's been a long time. We've not come up with that yet. And there it is. Obi Brian.
It's over. We missed our chance. But
there you go.
Yeah, Brian was one of the mentors who met with me for years throughout the program. And so, it was really, really grateful for what I really liked about it was like it wasn't just only an academic side. There was also the mentorship side, because part of it is, I think, I'm gonna even throw the triangle in there. The no-be-do triangle.
No-be-do-be-do.
It's not just only do we want to know stuff. It's cool to know stuff, but part of it is also we want to have our character shaped to be more like Christ and really grow in competency as well. And so that's kind of the do side. So there you go. We already got the no-be-do triangle in within the first few minutes.
Shout out to one of our graduates from a number of years ago when you just said that. He had the T-shirt, "It's not cool to not know stuff."
I thought of the same thing.
Dr. Brolance now.
I was
Dr. Brolance.
Dr. Brolance.
I feel like he's the only person that we could actually say Dr. Brolance, because he looks like a surfer.
He is a surfer.
And mercifully, he's not the one who said that he missed last week's episode, so he may miss all of this.
That's right. I don't think. Lance, if you're listening, let us know. But
I don't think he's listening.
If somebody else tells you we gave you a shout out, then you'll know. That's probably what will happen.
But we were trying to get out of town, so we didn't record.
I was already out of town.
You're already out of town. Why were you out of town?
I was out of town because we had graduation weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So Randy Lathrop, who happens to be your father-in-law, Also, Josh De La Rosa, the Antioch Project director from California, they both came out here for our graduation Saturday morning. We all, without planning it, ended up being on the same flight Saturday evening, flying to California, and then we redid graduation on
but without Luke.
Sunday. Yes, without Luke and without Jordan. We had 5 different graduates there in California, and so we had a total of 7 graduate with their master's degree. Sunday evening at Stone Arbor. That was my first time to get to be in their newly finished, opened worship space on property there. So, yeah, it was fun. I saw it in the stages that they were building it, but first time to see it live and in action. We went to church there on Sunday morning, and then graduation Sunday evening.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So the rest of us were headed out. Hope Church is a part of a larger network of churches, and what links all the churches together are a set of values and an approach to church life and an approach to ministry. I think at this point, all of the churches can find their origin back at Hope Church at some level. I don't think we have any currently in the network that are totally outside and just heard about us and said, hey, I want to jump in. So the good part about that is when we have these large network gatherings, there is a level of ginormous family reunion vibe about the whole thing. The conference was called Relevate, which is not a real word. It is a relevant and an elevate smashed together like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And as it just so happens, this year we were looking at like the core of what holds us together as a network, which were the 7 heart attitudes, which we'll talk more about here in just a little bit. But I had the joy of bringing my 16-year-old daughter for the first time. And I think I had a similar conversation with her that I had with other people who were newer to these gatherings of it. This is like, imagine that your spouse belongs to a very large family and they get together for a holiday and you're dating and you show up and it is, okay, now that is cousin Joe who's married to this and they have 5 kids, but they're around here someplace. Like it's all of these, just they're meaningless connections that you have. Like I am overwhelmed with the amount of just relational info I'm getting. And it does get better over time that the more you go back and you hang like, oh, now I remember you, or I went on a mission trip with you. And so we have some shared experiences and those kind of things. So it really, I've now been in this space for, 20 plus years. And so it's a huge joy to get back there and see everybody. But I would love to hear kind of, because I guess you and me, Jeremy, we rode on a plane there and back.
We did. Yes.
We were not on, I was on a plane with you. On the way home. I don't think I saw you except in passing most of the time. There were like 500 people there. I had this weird, this is not according to our outline, but I was sitting there at some point and I can't remember who was talking about what. And they said, we were talking about the amount of people who were coming around at the beginning of the church movement in the first few chapters of the book of Acts. That first day that Peter's out there saying, you need to repent and trust Jesus. 3,000 people, at least men, came to Christ on that day. 3,000 people. There are 5, I don't know what the exact number was, but there's roughly 500 people at Relevate. I thought that's 6 times the size of Relevate. That's a lot of people. Like when you look at the size of the world population, 3,000 is not that much, but like, oh man, I'm thinking 500 is a lot of 6 times this would be just massive. Anyway, that was really cool. But all in that, I saw you, Luke, in passing because there were so many people. But I did want to get y'all's take on like what are some takeaways from the time. But before we hear that, can you give us, Matt, just a recap of heart attitudes, what was going on at Relevate and all of those things? And
Yeah.
Yeah. Just give a download for all the uninitiated who might be listening.
The uninitiated. Yeah. So I think these 7 heart attitudes, that is one of the common threads among all the churches in the network. So whether the new churches, today are, that's just part of the DNA that they're being started with. Others, their stories of they took a while to introduce them, or they left some out along the way and finally got to all 7. But our founding pastor, Harold Bullock, he's the one who created these, and I thought it was fun. That first night, he sort of shared, the why behind even creating them. I guess first thing I want to say before I get into that is, man, if you missed this conference, you missed it. And I know we all, as the pastors were talking, had some folks from our churches who were kind of like, oh, it's on the heart attitudes. I know them. It's not worth going. And it wasn't just, there's a session on heart attitude 1, a session on heart attitude 2, and so on. And that's all we talked about. I mean, there was so much connective elements that, wow, it was just, you missed out. So I'm going to, give a little summary here, and then, you get to hear some of our takeaways. But if you missed it, probably in a couple of weeks, it'll be available. So definitely, you want to get this one. But before I say the 7 heart attitudes, I thought it was interesting, Harold, when he went through the why, he says they're all commands of God. And that's the thing that, we read through the Bible, and how do we practically live out what the Bible says? So this is something where this is what God commands us, the way he commands us to relate, put in very specific, actionable ways that are easy to remember. He said that there's this predictor of the friction points in church, and there's just even in family, there's typical places where we can go sideways and we can get crossways, and so that's what these deal with. And then I thought it was funny. He says, people can only handle 7 things, and I was thinking about it because he said, there's the 21 immutable and, all these things. You get the list too big and you can't remember it. And then he says they deal with most of the conflict areas. And so I was like, wow, that's, very, it just makes sense, And so these are we say the relational values of our church. And the great thing is, let me take a drink here, man. This happened to me
on
yesterday.
Sunday. You were like, Jeremy. Oh, it was Jonathan. Okay, I thought
the safety team told me in the back. They were like, "It's a good thing you had Jonathan bring that up there." I'm like, I did that on purpose. I didn't want to have any unauthorized person on stage. But not only do they work in the context of church, but they work in family. They work all over the place. So here's just a quick summary of them, the 7 heart attitudes. Heart attitude number 1 is put the goals and interest of others above my own. And, this is basically the biblical definition of love. But if we say just love one another, which that's actually what the Bible says, and we see that, love one another, and then we start getting into, well, what kind of love? Is this how I love my spouse? Is this how I love my dog? Is this how I love pizza? So just put the goals and interests of others above my own. Number 2 is live an honest, open life before others. And this is, the person being presented on the outside should reasonably match the actual person on the inside. And our, in our culture, and even I think wrongly in the church, people talk about transparency. I just got to be transparent. That's actually not biblical. We want financial transparency for publicly traded companies, but we don't want transparency in our lives, because that means just everything is gushing out. We need to have discretion, and that's what this living an honest, open life before others is, that I can really be me, So on a Sunday morning, when you see somebody and you say, "Hey, how you doing?" It's really okay to say it's been a hard week. You don't have to just be phony. Heart attitude number 3, give and receive scriptural correction. So, we say we all have a blind spot and we all have a whistle. And, when there's blind spots in our life, areas where we're out of bounds, we need somebody to point it out to us. And this is scriptural correction. These aren't just preferences. There's things we like, but then there's things where the Bible actually says do this or don't do this. And we actually grow as we have the opportunity to be corrected. And then sometimes we have to be the one to correct. And, everybody's like, they don't like being corrected, but people really don't like having to correct others because you take a risk. And I'll just, I first learned these heart attitudes when I was probably 19 years old. And so I've been practicing them for a while. We say practicing just like doctors practice medicine, You're not perfect, but you're practicing them.
Getting better all the time.
And I don't like being corrected, but it can be really hard correcting others because you're putting the relationship at risk, depending on how the person responds. Clear up relationships. It's very natural to get sideways with other people, especially the ones we're closest with. I don't know about you guys, but it's like in the home, that's where I have to clear the relationship up the most. So those first 4 really have to do with relating together and teams and groups and other things, and then the last 3 are kind of bigger picture for the way we relate more broadly as a church. So participate in the ministry. There is something for everyone to do, and that's one of our organizational values is everyone on mission. And we're able to move forward as everybody participates and does their part. Very similar to participate is support the work financially. Again, that's the way God's mission moves forward is God's people giving to God's mission. And we have, just like we have different spiritual gifts, we have different financial capacities, but we're all to be a part through serving and giving. And then heart attitude number 7, this is follow spiritual leadership within scriptural limits. And this one, we don't follow leaders into sin. We don't follow them to do things that are wrong. But God actually, the way that He has ordered the world is He's created authority and leaders. So we follow leaders, and there's an appropriate time to ask questions and understand, but then we just go. And this one's the hardest one for the American mindset, right? And I think we also, if we're in agreement, so here's, we'll just Captain Obvious here. I'm the lead pastor, and everybody in here, you guys are on staff, and so I'm the boss, right? And so part of following spiritual leadership is if I have a great idea that you love, it's not really following. It's more like we're taking a walk because you're like, man, I'd do that anyway. But if I have a great idea that you don't love, there's a time where you need to appropriately ask questions. And hey, well, have you thought about this? Yes. What do we do about that? Here's what the plan is. Okay. At the end of the day, you still don't love the idea and you really don't want to do it. That's the time when you get to choose to follow. And that's hard. We don't like that. So, but these 7 heart attitudes it's a way to very simply, succinctly summarize key teachings in the New Testament. This is very God honoring. You want to live in a way that pleases God. You want to live in a way that the Bible says how we should live. These are 7 great summaries here, and even the word attitude, it sort of is your angle of approach. So if you take this angle of approach to life, it just goes better. They're simple but not easy, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So anyway, that's just a quick summary of the heart attitudes.
Very cool. And for the uninitiated, in case somehow you think that the Heart Attitudes, that we're following the Heart Attitudes, which is an additional teaching to the Bible, it is not. So what Pastor Harold did back, those many moons
1978.
ago, was he condensed a lot of what is taught in the New Testament and kind of categorized them and grouped them into these 7 categories. But there are a multitude of verses that you can find in the New Testament that talk about each one of the 7 heart attitudes. So it's been super helpful for me to have such short, memorable statements that help me put into practice what all of the New Testament is teaching.
Something like it's like someone's trying to climb a mountain. These are like handholds to kind of practically get a good grip on applying through summary statements.
Because it's easy to say like, it's in the New Testament. Go find it. Let me take a minute.
Well, and if any of our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with them, Harold wrote a book. It came out a couple of years ago.
What's its title?
It's called The Heart Attitude, 7 Keys to Healthy Biblical Community. You can find it on Amazon in paperback or Kindle.
What?
And and Harold Bull is the author. So it's great. We did that as actually I'm looking here. It's saying January 1st, 2021. Is the publication date. We actually did it in the fall of 2020, and we got that pre-release version. It's I guess it's the advantage when it's the founding pastor of the church is the one that wrote the book. Anyway, so that's and the thing I love about they work in the home. In fact, that's just this.
They work in the office.
They work in the office. Yeah, they really work everywhere, and you can. Here's the thing. Putting the goals and interests of others above my own, live an honest, open life before others. Maybe not so much the give, but the receiving correction, clearing up relationships. Just those 4. Your non-Christian friends, family, and coworker, they will not mind if you do those. I've never met anybody who has gotten upset if I put their goals and interests above my own. I've never met anybody who, if I'm just going to be kind of honest before them, they may not like some of the honesty, but they appreciate it. If I will graciously receive correction from them, they love you, right? And then, clearing up relationships, that's the one. Sometimes people, they don't know what to do with it. I remember once, so I'll tell on myself. This was years and years ago before I was in vocational ministry and was working in business. And I was in sales, outside technology sales, and I was new in this position. And one of the co-owners of the company who was over the sales department, he went with me on some sales calls. And let's just say he was not a salesman. And if his primary way to get sales was basically, he thought it was all about the price, and he would lower the price. Now, if you're in outside sales, you make commission, right? So, maybe sometimes you have to negotiate with the price, but that's not necessarily what the objection is. And so he went, and they were my clients, and of course he starts cutting the price down to make the deal, and I was young and naive, and I told him about how frustrated I was with him, and I actually happened to be talking with Harold, and I was kind of just foolishly kind of bragging about that. And then if you know him, he has a very deep voice. He says, "Well, you know what you need to do, Matt." I'm like, "What?" He says, "You need to ask his forgiveness." That was not the answer I was expecting. And okay, tell me more about that, And he just pointed out the fact that, and this actually kind of goes back to this following leadership. It's like, well, he's one of the co-owners of the company, so actually all the clients are his. like you're the one managing the clients, and if he wants to drop the price, that's his prerogative, you know. And I really didn't like the fact that, you know, this was one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, thanks, I'm going to pray about that. And then, you know, you say that, and then it's like 2 seconds later, the Holy Spirit's like, he's right, you turkey, you know.
Right.
So I made it a point to, I got in really early the next morning to meet my boss on the way in. I'm like, hey, can we talk for a minute? And sure. And sat down, and I just, you know, this was, you know, more than 20 years ago. I don't remember exactly what I said, but the sentiment was, yesterday I was not respectful of you in the way that I was talking with you, and, you know, I asked his forgiveness, and he didn't. I could tell he wasn't sure what to do with that. And he, oh yeah, sure, okay, you know. But I mean, just as he's processing it, so I don't think I might have been the first employee to have ever done that, and, you know, his management style in some areas was, you know, maybe not the best, and so he wasn't the favorite of a lot of the guys.
Sure.
But I think he, you know, had never experienced that, so he didn't mind me clearing up with him, even if he didn't understand it. He didn't mind.
I didn't realize there was mud, but I'm glad it's clear now.
Yeah.
So I guess just go around the table. So we're talking about the hard attitudes at the Relevate conference. It was what, two days and change of content. So what was a nugget of information that was meaningful to you out of the conference that you don't mind being on the internet for all the world until the end of time?
Sure.
No pressure. You
Rock,
can go
paper,
first.
scissors, go.
Oh, I got this. Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate you pointing out that, you know, Pastor Harold didn't just come up with these. You know, these are, he combed through the Bible. He found essentially, you know, how we're supposed to interact with each other and how we're supposed to interact with the church, and put them in these 7 categories. And there's other, you know, more, I guess, minor things outside of these, but these are like the 7 major categories. But one thing that struck me from the conference is that when you read through the Bible, these are also the things that Jesus modeled and that Jesus did for us. And so it's not just we're doing these 7 hard attitudes because Hope Church says we're supposed to, or we do these 7 hard attitudes because they're on the poster. But, you know, Jesus sacrificed for us. And so we put the goals and interests of others above our own, you know, and everything that we have financially, everything that we have in our life is given from God. You know, we have not done anything to really deserve, you know, we only deserve one thing, and that's hell. And so any good thing that we have is a gift from God. And so, you know, us supporting the work financially, supporting the church, you know, is out of our gratitude. And so it's not just a list of commands, you have to do this, but, you know, these were the example that Jesus set. These are the examples from the Bible. And so, yeah, it put a different twist behind them that, I'm not just doing it because I'm a good, obedient, you know, Hope Churcher. But yeah, these really are what we're supposed to be doing, what we're commanded to do in the Bible.
Yeah.
I think on my end, as you know, I grew up at Hope Church, so I've been very familiar with these, but I think sometimes what's easy to do for the hard attitudes is to make it reciprocal, where it's like, I'll put the goals and interests of others above my own when they do it. And I think it's easy to look at them as like, okay, yeah, I'll clear up as soon as they clear up, or as soon as we're even, I'll do that. And one of the things I really appreciated about the Relevate conference was the connection of the gospel to the hard attitudes. Now, the hard attitudes are not the gospel. You know, we don't get saved by practicing these. We're only saved because of what Jesus did on the cross. I think one of the things that was emphasized during the conference was how much Jesus does love his people who he's chosen, and it's an unconditional love for those that are part of his family. And so I think one of the things that clicked for me from this conference was, because how much Jesus has loved me, I'm supposed to love other people. I'm supposed to, put the goals and interests of others above my own, regardless of how they relate to me. I need to clear up with them regardless how they relate. If they are willing to ask forgiveness of me, I need to, receive their correction, even if maybe they're not going to receive mine. And so I think for me, that really clicked of like, oh, okay, because of what Jesus has done through his death, burial, and resurrection, and how much he's going to love us no matter what we do, this also, we're going to do these. This is who we should be, regardless of how other people treat us. And so I think sometimes what I've grown over time is to expect others that, oh, they should also be doing this, and if they're not, I have a right to be mad at them. But I've realized over time, like, no, I'm basing this out of the gospel, out of what Jesus has already done, and I'm going to choose to live these out because of who he is and what he's done. And so that was just something that I think really stood out from the Heart Attitude content.
Yeah, man, there was so much. I loved. I'm gonna take boss privilege and share a couple here. All right, so I wrote the script. Now I'm deviating from it. So, but I loved coming at it from different angles. I'll give a teaser to this one. I'm not really going to go into it, but we talked about how they can be weaponized, and that could be abused or misused. And we have experienced that here. Times that people want to, probably the biggest category is you just make them rules. They're not just rules. This is a chosen attitude, an angle of approach to life, but not a rule. And I do them, but there doesn't make anybody else do it, and I can't make other people do this. So there's all kinds of ways to weaponize them, and I think it was really helpful to look at it, some of the different categories. There was a presentation on how they relate to evangelism. And one of the things, Jeremy and I teach our membership class, and there's a time in our membership class where we kind of quickly go through the heart attitudes, and then we talk about how have you experienced these, and what would it look like to not have these in church life. And the thing that came up in the session on evangelism is how they engage all the senses. Like, these really are things that you smell the aroma of people living this way, and you can taste it and touch it, and just that was really like fascinating, and thinking about how it makes life and community attractive. I don't know, you guys maybe grown up and there were like neighbors where like you could hear yelling, right? And it was just like, I don't want to go there, man. If I can hear it out here, I don't even want to know what it's like on the inside. Well, that's kind of repelling. But then there's other neighbors you had, or friends, and you're just like, man, I want to be here, right? But I don't want to overstay my welcome, but I want to be here. And the heart attitudes can really just how they help with evangelism. If you do these, you're going to be attractive to people, which will give you the opportunity to share the hope you have and the truth of the gospel. But the one I'm going to mention is there was this really great chart about just some guidelines and boundaries. Yeah. So I'll just pick a couple of these here. So, put the goals and interests of others above my own. That's the heart attitude. The goal is Christ-like self-giving that seeks another's true good. That's what we're after, Then the guideline is you ask whose needs are most impacted. We prefer others in preferences, but we hold on to the principles. And then the boundary, this is really important to think about, is we do not neglect our God-given duties or stewardships. So, like, what are your God-given duties as a stewardship? Well, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a parent, especially if you have little kids. There's going to be a time where it's like, I would like to put your goals and interests above my own, but I have a stewardship to my 2-month-old, and I'm putting their goals and interests above my own and yours, because this is my God-given stewardship right now. Like, they need to be fed, or they need to have their diaper changed, and I can't mow your lawn for you, or whatever. And then we don't enable sin. So there's a lot of things people maybe want us to do for them that we just can't do, which that fits into with just our church value of loving people wisely. We want to love people, but it's got to be wisely. And you don't give somebody I very rarely will ever give a panhandler money, but when somebody's hungry, I'll give them a meal, right? Because I don't know what they're going to do with that money. But I remember I had a breakfast meeting with a guy a while back, and there was a guy standing outside in like the cold rain, holding the signs. We're outside of Denny's, and he said he was hungry. And I'm like, "Are you really hungry?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, come in, and I'll get you some food." And I bought him breakfast, and but I wasn't going to give him money. So we don't enable things, but we do want to love people. Then just one more I'll just pick here. Clear up relationships. So this is about protect worship in the church by reconciling quickly. That's the goal. Guidelines is we don't postpone. We admit when we're wrong. So I was wrong. Will you forgive me? If you're stuck, you invite a mediator if necessary. You avoid fake peace. That's like pretending like it's all together, but it's not. But then the boundaries are, Romans 12:18 talks about as far as it depends on you. So sometimes you can't be reconciled. Don't push for reconciliation if harm continues. You've got to set boundaries. Don't confess sin that you didn't commit. And I've had this in my life where someone's felt like I did something against them, and it actually wasn't sin, and I think the biggest categorical example that I'll give is a leadership decision that was my prerogative to make that somebody disagreed with. There's no sin in that. It's like this was just a leadership decision that I had to make, and I'm not going to ask your forgiveness for making a decision that you didn't like. That's one of the hard things about being a leader, whether it's in your home or on the job or in the church, whatever it is. So clear up relationships. This goes back, we talked about this before, but like forgiveness only takes one. Like I can forgive someone who has wronged me, regardless of if they ever ask me for forgiveness. I can forgive them in my heart. Reconciliation actually takes two people. We have to agree on what the offense is so that we can be reconciled. And one of the sad realities, and we see this a lot, is that somebody has a broken relationship with a relative who's passed away. Well, there's literally no way to be reconciled in that case. You can forgive them and move forward, but you actually can't be reconciled. And then trust is extended after reconciliation, and trust is extended carefully and slowly. And there are some people that you forgive them because we're commanded to forgive, and we might even be reconciled, but I'm never going to trust them again in that way, and I shouldn't. So anyway, so this was a really helpful chart that we'll probably be incorporating this in some of our training. Just to kind of see what is the goal, the guidelines, and then some boundaries to help us operate.
Yeah. So I know when we've done sermon series, which I do think this is, for better or worse, I'm assuming that the person who said, they're doing the hard attitudes, I'm not going to go, they're assuming it was going to be like when we've done sermon series on them, and they're like, let me go into more detail about each one of these things. Like, well, I've done that 8 times, so I'm not going to this. I thought what was great about the conference was it really did talk about, like we've already said, like how they're either connected together, or they're connected into life and sort of the foundations even underneath the heart attitude. So like I think in past series, whether it's been you, Matt, or Pastor Harold, there's usually some mention of they're not arbitrarily ordered. It starts with putting the goals and interests of others above my own on purpose. And Harold has said, it's a way to verb out the noun love. Like, this is what biblical love is. And then if you are loving the right way around each other, then it's much easier to be open and honest. And then if you're open and honest, it's much easier to give and receive scriptural correction, and so on. So they're all building off of each other, and like one is a prerequisite of the other. But I thought in this, to really highlight, not only are they ordered a certain way, but the reason that number one is number one is because that is the core personality trait and driver of God, is that he is love. He is unconditionally loving us. And I think the thing that was really driven home, which I was joking with my wife a lot, and probably will still, about this, was one of the speakers was highlighting this particular grammatical thing out of the Old Testament. I can't remember what, something perfect tense or whatever it was. But the English phrase was, I have loved you. And he said, if I ever look at my wife at any point, like I say, I love you. And then the other response is, I have loved you. There's a lot of questions that now come up about the relationship. But that what God meant was, before you ever had the opportunity to sin or do righteous, I loved you. Like, oh my goodness. Now I'm still, at times I look at Glenda, and now I can look at her with all the affection and say, I have loved you.
She at least knows.
She knows what I'm talking about. But I think there's been a lot of, which I think we've talked about at other times, where I'm still trying to earn my salvation.
Yeah.
I know that Jesus died for my sins. I know there's no way for no way for me to pay that back, but I would like to make some small payments towards paying it back. And I think just I guess the overall takeaway for me was, stop doing that. I loved you before you did anything. And so, just sort of rest in that. And then all of the work of what God wants to do comes out of affection. It doesn't come out of obligation. It doesn't come out of duty, though there is duty and obligation but it's the foundation of those obligations and duties is affection. It is not, I've got to do this thing because he's making me love somebody else or whatever the thing is. So it was really helpful to kind of stew on that for 2 days.
And so just as example, one of the things you said, so here were the session titles, so we got the history of the heart attitudes, connecting the dots, the heart attitudes in context, I have loved you, which is what you were just talking about, and this was like going through the book of Malachi, looking at some key things, weaponizing the heart attitudes, where's the honor due me, that connects back to the Malachi, the hidden battle, the heart attitudes and evangelism, surely the day is coming, that also connected back to Malachi. So yeah, not there wasn't 7 sessions, one for each heart attitude, but yeah, really, really good. Lots to think about, and really good stuff.
And then we all came home. We came back to Central Time. And I was impressed both going and arriving. One, at the time we were in the middle of the government shutdown, and so there was some concern about how long was the wait going to be to get through airport security. And mercifully, Matt, you showed us this DFW airport app that gave this is where it's quickest to get through security. That was super helpful. So got through security just fine, I think. Well, you left a day early, Luke.
Yeah, we had we also used the app, but we we made it through security by God's grace. There's a longer story behind that.
Man, okay, so I learned this trick from a friend who travels, constantly for work, and so I've done it a couple of times. And he said you park at Terminal E.
Yes, the E,
which is like the non-American terminal. It's the one where Delta and
that's not American Airlines.
Not American Airlines.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
We landed in the
American. Pretty much takes up all the other terminals, but I don't think they fly out of E. That's where Delta and whatever the other airlines are. So we parked at E. There's bukus of open parking spaces there. Park at E. And then go through the security, and there was literally no one in line at all. We just walked, and it feels weird when you go through all those the lines, and there's nobody there. You're like,
TSA are just staring at you as you're walking.
They're like, hurry up, I'm waiting. I'm like, well, open up a spot. And I mean, and actually, so this is another crazy just thing, but so I have TSA pre because I travel quite a bit. And when I buy tickets for my family, the kids, because they're minors, automatically get TSA pre. But Jessica doesn't have TSA pre. Now, they used to give her TSA pre, but then they changed the rules, and we need to just get it for her. But what I found at E was where we went in at around E8, they have the lines are separated: general boarding, and then priority and TSA pre. Those were combined. So I travel a lot, so I have some priority status. So then she got to come with us.
Hey, there you go.
It was like, hey, this is awesome. So, no line. We don't have to send her off into the general boarding, the peasant line.
Oh no,
that's where I go.
I had to help pick up somebody from the airport once, and they'll give you like a gate ticket if you need to go meet somebody.
Yeah.
And so since I always go through TSA pre, I couldn't do that when I was doing that. And I literally waited an hour in the security line to go pick somebody up from the gate. And I was like, now I know how the rest of the world feels. It's best $85 I have ever spent in my life, TSA pre.
Wow, I am a peasant at the airport. And I can't remember the last time I had to wait more than about 20, 30 minutes at the most.
Wow.
But, Wednesday was like a quick little 10-minute.
The hardest part was we landed in where I parked at Terminal D, which is the international terminal, and both leaving and coming back into town. I don't know what is going on in either Turkey or somewhere in the Middle East, but Turkish Airlines lines were jam-packed, both on Wednesday and Saturday. It was...
Oh, yeah.
It was like, let's get out of town. I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah, it was not only from the desk to the door, it was from the desk to the door and then curved around another 2 times that.
That would be like going back to Turkey?
I don't know. It was Turkish Airways, so
it would have been them leaving DFW to go somewhere. I don't know. I mean, people were... It was Turkish Airlines, but it doesn't mean they were necessarily going back to Turkey. But
and no one in Qatar Airways, no one in the other, just that one gate.
Yeah, and it was just that airline. So there were lots of different airlines ticketing available, but it was just that one, and both times it was crazy. Anyway,
but I think going back to your E thing, if you can go park at E, or if you're not checking a bag, you can go through Terminal E and then take the Skylink and go anywhere you want to,
or you could walk it.
Which is what Jeremy and I did.
Wow.
We were just getting our steps in.
That is
FYI.
impressive.
It's a lot of stairs.
That is a lot of stairs.
It's fun.
But so I think you can, but if you have to check a bag, I wouldn't recommend the E, because then you have to go to American, check your bag, go back.
Works for carrying
it only works if you're carrying on.
But I was, at least on my flights, people have joked that you can tell the difference between an Air Force pilot and a Navy pilot by the landing. Apparently, I got on 2 planes with Air Force pilots because it was a nice, smooth landing. It wasn't like we're trying to land on a boat in the middle of the ocean. So that was good. But given all of that we were we had a short work week because we were trying to get out of town. You 2 were out. And I think last year, Pastor Harold was supposed to be out in California for the Relevate conference, and because of circumstances wasn't able to be there. So we filmed all of his sessions and then sent them via electrons to California, and they could mess with them. Well, it's a safety, because he was supposed to be there live. Like, well, we should record them anyway, just in case he's not able to be there, and then it's not this mad scramble. So we recorded all of his sessions, sent them, and then on the maybe with the TSA, who knows what. It turns out the shutdown ended in the middle of the conference, but as did the production of pennies. But we weren't.
It's a whole nother topic.
It's a whole other topic.
Go.
We weren't necessarily want to bank on that you, Matt, were going to be able to get on a plane on Saturday and get home for the Sunday sermon. So we filmed that sermon and edited it. And I was talking to somebody at the conference who knew all of that had gone on. I said, I've never spent more time recording things that I hoped I would never use. But so you were able to make it back. We did the sermon live. What was hilarious, though, because it was like a Sunday afternoon when we filmed the sermon that you did Sunday to wrap up the series. And I think there was no clock. There was no next thing to get to. And so like, let's just let it go. Let's just go. So I put the recorded video into my editor timeline, and I'm staring at the end. I'm like, oh no, it's 58 minutes. That's the whole service, is, you know. And then we had that video from the good folks who have participated in the offering in the past, and so that 2 minutes, like now it's a solid hour, and I'm texting the band like, you should plan plan A is Matt's there, plan B should have some stuff that you're gonna do. Anyway, so I know I told you that, and you're like, okay, well, we got to trim some stuff out. So here is the opportunity. I'm going to summarize what we did talk about, and then I'm curious about what you didn't say that we ended up cutting out. So Sunday we wrapped up the I Am series, and we launched the Christmas offering. So I think you restated a bunch of the goals that 8 weeks ago we said were for the series, that many people would surrender to Jesus as Savior and Lord, that believers would take a step of baptism, that we as a church would grow in the grace and knowledge of Jesus, that we would renew our passion for sharing Jesus, and that we would be prepared in our hearts for the Christmas offering. So those are the stated goals. In particular, I think some of those goals are less noticeable than others, but the ones that we can obviously notice, we can tell that God really moved in the hearts of people. So since the series started, which was in the middle of September, 26 people indicated that they were following Jesus as Savior and Lord for the first time on their connection card. There may have been more than that, but so 26 people indicated that on their card. And then we had our baptism and worship service, not yesterday, but the week before. And we had 12 people baptized at that. So, and I want to say, I could be wrong, but I want to say that may have been the biggest baptism service that I have been a part of at Hope.
Like the most baptizees?
Yes. I think that, and particularly on the adult side, I may have been at something where we had a gaggle of kids, but on the adult side, that was a lot. So God's, really moved through the series, which is really awesome. We looked at these 7 statements where Jesus said that He is the bread of life, He was the light of the world, He is the door, the good shepherd, the resurrection and the life, the way, the truth, and the life, and the true vine. And then you talked about there's an invitation that's attached to each one of those. I'll not go into those. Y'all can read watch the sermon. But then out of that, we made a shift to, because of who Jesus is, and because we want so many people to experience new life because of Jesus, that is why we have our Christmas offering. So we launched into the Christmas offering. Our goal this year is $155,000 between, last Sunday and the end of January of 26, with 84% of that $155,000 being sent out to ministry partners locally, nationally, globally, and then there was a 4th category of collegiate ministry, locally, nationally, and globally. This was fun. You said we started the offering back in 2010, and since then we've given around $2.4 million to these ministries around the world. So again, I think you had our memory verse was Ephesians 3:20. That I love it. It starts off, that God is able to do more than we could possibly think or imagine. And so that is really the faith step that we're taking with this offering. We're taking a little bit, each giver is taking the little bit that they have. We're pulling it together with each other, which is more than anyone probably could do on their own. Mm-hmm. And then God's going to do even beyond what we could possibly think or imagine with that money. So it'll be exciting to see what God does. And over the weeks, as we hear reports from our partners about what God has been doing, that will be good. So given all of that background, in case you missed last week's message, Pastor Matt, what did you leave out?
It was kind of funny when you texted me that the length of everything. I was like, oh no. But I just sort of I went for it because we had to film. I think the day we filmed those, it was the same day that Harold was coming in to film his videos. Yep. And then I filmed the sermon, and then I needed to film the one video that you were planning to use, which was hey, congratulations to all of our baptism candidates, and talked a little bit about baptism.
It was a Tuesday.
So it was, there was a lot of filming going on there. So, I mean, I think it forced me to, just look at everything and tighten it up as much as I can. But I think there were a handful of what I made, and there were 4 big things that I cut out, so I'll just kind of go through. So after I did the recap on the different invitations and kind of reminding us of all the 7 I am statements, and then we talked about being a kingdom builder. Mm-hmm. I had this really great thing about connecting the kingdom building to the I am statements, and I was like, nope, don't have time for that. So anyway, so basically a kingdom builder is someone who says, Jesus, because you're the bread of life, I'll help feed others. Because you're the light of the world, I'll shine your light in dark places. Because you're the door, I'll hold it open for others to find you. Because you're the good shepherd, I'll care for people in the ways you've cared for me. Because you're the resurrection and the life, I will bring hope where there's despair. Because you're the way, the truth, and the life, I will walk in your truth even when it's unpopular. And because you are the true vine, I will stay connected to you so my life bears fruit for eternity. That's what it is to be a kingdom builder. And I was like, okay, that shaves, a minute off at least. And then if I had said it, on Sunday, I probably would have expanded on it, and it wouldn't just cut out those statements. So that was the first thing, just trying to connect the kingdom building back to the I am statements that we've been looking at. And then when I was introducing just sort of the categories of our partnerships, that was one where I trimmed back and tried to just say as little as I could on the category, particularly on the global partners. I mentioned that we want to partner with people who are taking Jesus to the nations, and we are partnering with the IMB. That's one of our partners. But there was a map that I pulled out of a presentation made available by the IMB that was really fascinating, and it was going to be basically why global missions is so important. And in this map, it shows a world map, and there was these, I don't know if they were dots or actually little stick figure people that were supposed to represent 6,555 people groups, which is the equivalent of 3.4 billion people. So that's almost half the world's population, right? Mm-hmm. And that those people are all in regions where there's fewer than 2% evangelical Christians. Mm-hmm. and there is little to no, Christian resources available. And, then just kind of all showing that this is a statistic from the IMB that basically 166,338 people die every day without Jesus. When you take that context of those 3.4 billion people in that unreached or minimally reached area, that's a lot of people. So why do we need global missions? Well, I mean, that's a lot of people who are dying without ever hearing about Jesus. So that was another thing that I cut out. I think I can't remember now. I intended to cut it out, and I think I might have still snuck it back in. But just when I was talking about our collegiate partners, why that's its own category, because it's it's the I did say it's the crossroads of life, but it was great. One of our longtime members came up to me after the first service, and he was like, I really appreciate that we have such an emphasis on supporting collegiate ministries. And then he told me part of his story that I hadn't ever heard before, but he, just to summarize it, he basically, when he got to this college that he went to, there was a Christian ministry that was thinking about being started there. And his roommate, he was not a follower of Jesus, but his roommate was a believer and was a part of this Christian ministry. They weren't really even fully up and going, but they were kind of testing some things. So his roommate is there having Bible studies in their room, and basically as a result of all this, he becomes a follower of Jesus. And so that's awesome. Then so I told him, I said, yeah, and I'm pretty sure I didn't say all this, is that there's kind of two big stories that I see when I talk to somebody who is an adult, who went to college. Is number one, they came to college, university, not a Christian. And because of a campus ministry, they got to, whether it's like it was a free pizza or whatever it is, right? They get connected. They see a group of people that are living differently, and they're attracted to the gospel. They hear the gospel, they surrender to Jesus, and then their life and the trajectory of their life and really their family's destiny is changed. That's kind of path one. And then path two is more, I fall into this category, is I did grow up in a Christian home, but I went to church, but I always sort of viewed church as like the filling station you went on Sunday, and you heard a message or you went to Sunday school, but there wasn't a lot of practical application to life. And I would say I wasn't really ever discipled, and that didn't happen until I got to college. Now, I went to a Christian school, and there was not a collegiate ministry there, but because I got connected to a church plant and the pastor really invested in me, I think the equivalent of my experience of at least being discipled was what a lot of Christian students is, they grow up in the church, and that's the point where you have to decide the faith is your own, and I'm really going to get serious. And that's huge, listen, if I hadn't have had the investment made in me by that pastor when I was in college, I probably wouldn't be here today. I'd be off, I don't know where, but not where I am today. So just really the importance of why we have such an emphasis on collegiate ministries. And I said it's its own category, but it does fit in local, national, and global because of the partnerships we've had. And we now have, I think if my math is right, obviously there's our local partner, Christian Impact, but in the national side, we now have two people who have been through Antioch, who are the directors of a campus ministry at their state school. And so that's pretty exciting, that as we've been training people and God's called them to campus ministry. So it's exciting to see, what God will continue to do into the future. And then the fourth thing that I went ahead and cut, and this was kind of in the tying a bow on things when I got back to the, so what does all this mean? We talked about, as we were wrapping the series up, what does it mean? I have to choose. I have to choose to surrender to Jesus as Savior and Lord. I have to choose to depend on Him daily. I have to choose to build His kingdom, not mine. And let me just say, too, I'm not going to say the name, but I loved when we had our staff prayer time today, seeing a student praying that they would not just build their own kingdom, but they would be a kingdom builder. I mean, the fact that, like our students are there, and sometimes parents will be like, why don't you have programming for the students? And I get it if you're like a sixth.
You mean on a Sunday?
Yeah, on a Sunday morning. Yeah. Why you don't have Sunday morning programming? And I get it if you're a brand new sixth grader, especially a boy. It might be hard to make that jump from kids ministry into the service, but I'm like, that's why, because we want our students to grow up to be adults. We want them to grow up to walk with Jesus, and they need to be hearing the same things that the adults are hearing. And I also, just like insider tip, parents, I'm teeing up the conversations for you to have with your students. But the fact that a student, was listening, and then their prayer request was, God, help me be a kingdom builder, not just build my own kingdom. I mean, that's like awesome to me. Like, that's one of the most encouraging things when I see students asking for prayer directly based on the things we talk about.
And when you say student, I take it you don't mean college.
No. I'm talking like,
right.
I think this person was a middle school student, So that's awesome. And so under the depend on Jesus daily part, which kind of goes back to the week that you spoke, Brian, on the vine. So this was a quote from Worsby, and I just thought it was like a really good kind of tying it all together. He says, the better we know Jesus, the more we will love Him. The more we love Him, the more we will obey Him. And the more we obey Him, the more we will abide in Him. The more we abide in Him, the more fruit we will bear. And the more fruit we bear, the more we will experience the life overflowing. It's somewhat of a spiritual chain reaction, and it begins with our decision to spend quality time with our Lord each day. So how important is the quiet time? There you go, right? That's pretty important. And it begins with that decision. Then we just get to see the fruit of that decision throughout our day, throughout our week, which leads to more fruit. So those were kind of probably the big things, and I've condensed them even a little bit to quickly share here that would have added more time. So you're welcome.
Well, in that spirit of things that you left on the table, we launched the Christmas offering. It's the 15th launch, and so we sort of have the talking points down for. I mean, the mission of the offering hasn't shifted a whole lot. I think some of the partners may have adjusted over time, but the strategy hasn't changed, and so the how we talk about it hasn't really changed. However, you and I have worked together for a very long time, Matt, and so I know more about the process, about how we arrive at that number, because it's different every year. And some of the, who are we giving that 84% to, all of those things. But just in the spirit of inside baseball, or as my daughter, she's like, I'm a behind the scenes kind of person. So in the realm of that, are there things about the Christmas offering that you would want to share with the super select audience that tunes in for the Sunday Extra podcast that may not make it to a Sunday morning presentation that you think might be helpful for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is... it's one of the most encouraging and stressful times for me. because, and let me explain what I mean by that. Because it's encouraging because I love seeing what God does each year, and he's done so much over the years that we've done this, and it's also stressful because you want to hear from God, and you're like, okay, God, what do you want us to do? And like, okay, and I'm, like I said, we want this realistic faith goal. And I am aware of, again, we talked about the prayer requests a minute ago. There are prayer requests for jobs because people don't have jobs. People lost jobs. People where, you talk about launching a Christmas offering like on the heels of a government shutdown, and all that stuff. I'm like, I had a moment, like it was actually probably good that we filmed the video when we did, because I was like, God, there was something I was reading, about the shutdown and everything while it was still going, and they're trying to get to the end of it. I'm like, after I already filmed that video, I'm like, God, do you want us to launch the Christmas offering still right now? Because I know we have people here who work for the government, or people who work for companies that have like huge contracts with the government. Right. So our people are affected, and I got to stand up there when somebody maybe hasn't been paid in however long, and it's like, we're going to give sacrificially, and I'm like, and we're trying to eat, so that's kind of stressful, but try so just it's a faith journey for me, so I'm like, it's a growth point for me every year. To say, okay, yes, this is what it seems like God wants us to do, and so I'm thinking about this. I wouldn't say I am not deeply thinking about it every month of the year, but we start getting to like July, August, I'm already really thinking and praying. I'm like, okay, God, what do you want us to do? Because you and Rachel, you're like, okay, when are we going to get the stuff? And and usually it's like, okay, what's the last day that we need to print something or whatever, and then still be able to get everything. And okay, well, you'll have it by then. So it's just this. It is a growth point for me to try to hear from the Lord and not want to shrink back, and then stand up there and say, okay, here's what I think God's doing. And again, different people, we all have different perspectives when it comes to money, so to those that work in corporate world and are used to writing checks with lots of zeros on them, it's like, oh, $155,000, that's half of what our rent's going to be for our plant next month, like, okay. And other people are like, I don't even make that much money in a year, and like, so how people perceive it. So we really want to have a realistic faith goal, and so kind of a metric that we've seen over the years. We also don't want to ever be presumptive, God's done some amazing things in past years of like, and I get to get up there and be humbled and be like, well, here's what I only had the faith to set the goal at this, and here's what God did, which goes back to our theme verse of like, to see what he's going to do beyond what we could think or ask. So we set this realistic faith goal. We see what God's going to ultimately do, and that's the exciting part. And and I see it, every week, seeing it grow. And then there's times where it's like, okay, we're quite a ways away from the goal, and I won't share this. I'm going to keep this part to myself. But I have a percentage that I'm comfortable at if we end the year at or above that percent. And if it's below that percent when we get to 12/31, then I get a little nervous. I'm like, okay, God,
and end of the year, there's still a month left of the offering.
Yeah,
so that's not the end.
Right. Yeah, that's and I mentioned on Sunday that one of the reasons we go into January is I actually had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago, and they said, yeah, I don't get my bonus until after the first of the year, and And that's really how God enables me to give to the Christmas offering. So they were appreciative that it goes into January, and that's one of the reasons. But and then when it comes to our partners, when it comes to the local partners, we want to help those in need in our city, and we want to help meet some practical needs, but we want to also make sure the focus is on the greatest need, which is the need for Jesus. So, that's one of the reasons why we're just a mile or so away from like where the Union Gospel Mission is, and in that corridor there are a handful of other organizations that are serving people and helping people. But one of the reasons why we have chosen to work with the Union Gospel Mission instead of some of the other ones is the emphasis that they put on the gospel and the message. In fact, I took a tour, this was a couple of years ago, of another great facility. They're helping people, but they don't have any programs where really you have to be exposed to the gospel. It's just come and have a place or eat. And so, and in fact that we were talking to somebody, a resident or a client, whatever you want to call them, somebody in need, and they were kind of comparing to, I like this place because, they just give me what I want. And the other place makes me do some of that God stuff, and I was thinking to myself, and that's why we support the other organization, is because we want people to be exposed to. If you just only like meet people's practical needs without exposing them to the gospel and giving them the opportunity to respond, then I just think we're missing something. So we're selective when it comes to the local partners. We absolutely want to be a help, but the vast majority of the ones that we work with, there is some type of gospel focus, so that we're making sure that we're meeting that most important need. And then, with others of our partners, there's not a lot of change this year in the specific partner list. There was there was a young couple who they've got some connections to Hope from the past, particularly through their parents, that they were in town and they're missionaries in Canada and kind of just starting in this journey, and they came last spring or summer, and so they're there's a small part of, and we're probably not even going to highlight them this year, but just a little bit of like seed money to see what they want to do. So I say that because we work with people that have proven track records, but we want to be open to what God might be doing in the future. So starting out, helping someone a little bit, and then seeing where they go. And there's been partnerships we've had in the past where we've helped someone for a few years, and then it's not that they're doing anything bad, but it just, maybe they wanted to do something that was a little more focused in line with the way that we do ministry, and then they got to the realities of the field, and it was hard to do that because that was different, and then they just went and did the standard thing that everybody's doing. And so we really do want to be good stewards of the money that people give, and seeing where it goes. So I think, the vast majority, one of the people in the video that we showed said, that they're vetted organizations, and that's really, we take seriously who we work with and the kind of work that they're doing and everything. So I think those are probably a couple of things that I would add. And then, I'm receiving, updates. Some people send monthly updates, some people send quarterly updates. So, we give kind of this annual video. We reach out, and some of the bigger organizations like International Mission Board, they work with a lot of churches, so they have videos that they produce. So some of our partners may have a well-produced video that they send out. And then a lot of the other ones, it's, our partners just making the videos themselves.
It's their phone video.
Yeah, their phone video and, all that, which is great, because we want the story. And so what we try to do with, the partners that we highlight is, here's a summary of what God has been doing over this last year. And because we have many long-standing partners, it's like everything that's happened in this last year of 2025, when we see that video and they share about those people that came to Christ and those students that got baptized and this, whatever it might be, it was like, we actually have a part in that, because we've been supporting them for a number of years and then helping, grow that ministry from afar. So, so those are a couple of things. So it's a exciting time to get to hear back about what's been going on and then be a part of what God's doing in the future. And then this year, we're entering into this season where, I said that everything above the goal will go to seed our vision 2028. So that's the first time we've done that with our Christmas offering. But to start a new church, we met with Josh from Stone Arbor, one of our network churches. Actually, before we all went to California, and he was just sharing, because they've planted 3 churches in the last 5 years, and not to scare anybody, but we're probably going to need $150,000 to $200,000 for that. So it's time now to start having an avenue to receive funds for that. So this will begin as we're praying, through, is this a plant or a campus, and where it will be. We still need to start saving some money for that. So, and then I'm excited to see, in 2028, what it is. Right now, we're building the base and the foundation in a lot of ways of what will be, and none of us know exactly what it's going to look like today, but just moving in that direction and trusting God and doing all that we can do. This is like anything in life, there's this partnership with God where we follow him in faith and we do what we know to do, and then he's the one responsible for the results, and he will do what he's going to do, and then we get to be a part of it, or we can choose not to be a part of it. And that's kind of what the Christmas offering is all about, is like all of our partners, God is working through them. And we could stop doing the Christmas offering and we would miss out. And our people would miss out on getting to have a piece of the action of what God is doing, outside of, we're doing some great things here, and when we've got some great things planned, but we get to be a part of even more. And that's what this Christmas offering is all about.
That's really good. I think one of the fun things about the Christmas offering, I think it's one thing we teach on giving and tithing, which is good. There's something, I think, particularly for either I've never given to church ever, or I rarely give, or whatever. There's something in the catalog of partners that it provides, I think, a different excuse isn't the right word, but another reason for someone. It's like, oh, well, if you're going to support that, then I will give to that. And I think God is able to use that as a way to say, oh, well, if you're going to be generous there, maybe over time I can help you be more generous on a more regular basis. So I know of one story from years ago of one of the partners was hoping to start a youth camp. And then I think in the video they said that they were gonna need some gravel for something, and they said it's about $100 for a sack of gravel. And I talked with somebody after the service, and they said, "Hey, I just got myself a sack of gravel." I think just that practicality is really cool. But then this was something that I think the Holy Spirit showed me years ago, because I'm not planning to go anywhere. I'm planning to participate in the Christmas offering until the end. And this is the pro tip if you've been around Hope for a long time. It's like, the Lord's Supper's coming. So talk to your spouse prior to Sunday and clear up relationships. Talk to them before, like your kids, before, and see if there's anything you need to clear up. In the same way, we've been doing this 15 years. The Christmas offering is coming around, and you, I think, have said, save little bits over time, and that can lead up to a large thing. The Holy Spirit can tell you in March what he wants you to give to the Christmas offering. So I think a practice over at the Crop household, take it if you want to, is like you've prayed about what God wants you to give, and then throughout the year you're putting that money back. So it's not like it's middle of November and I got Christmas to pay for, and now there's like all this panicky stuff. I really like to give for that and really make a significant contribution, but the time is so short. If it's coming, so you can kind of make that prep.
Yeah,
before the 11 weeks.
Maybe here's another thing. I don't know if I would ever say this on a Sunday, but as I was talking to some other pastors who all do their version of like a Christmas offering, and one of the things, I think one of them pointed this out, which I kind of alluded to it where I said we're all in different seasons, so. Some people, they're like, man, we've never had this many kids before, and we're like, money's tight. And then others are like, well, we've just launched our last kid and just paid off the college debt, or whatever. But he was particularly talking about like those in the empty nest season, and they said basically they're like, a practice is like we don't need to give each other something. They're like, we got the kids, we got the grandkids, but like, we don't need another watch, or we don't need another whatever. And so their pattern, I thought, was great. It was just like, hey, you know what? Whatever we would spend on each other, we're going to give that to the Christmas offering. And we know that that's going to have like an eternal impact, and not be another watch sitting there, or a shirt, or whatever it is. And I thought that is an interesting approach. That. We've all got kids in the home here, and we're like, I don't know that we could. It would be a hard sell to convince our kids, hey, how about you get nothing for Christmas and instead give it to the Christmas offering? Brian, you and Jeremy have some older ones that maybe could cognitively understand that, but I'm thinking about your youngest, Luke. It'd be like, what? But if you're empty nesters, or your kids are in college or whatever, I don't know. That's just. So sometimes people think like, oh, I can't do this, and it's get creative. What does that look like? And what I've done is, like I said, I put it on auto giving, give a little bit, each week, and that adds up. I wish I could write the check today, but that's not where I am, but a little bit over time is it really adds up. And I love when I see like the report from the Christmas offering. I love watching the total grow and seeing people get a part, but if I will look at any, pick a snapshot of any couple of weeks throughout the entire campaign and go back and see a bunch of really small gifts, but every week. And I'm like, that's awesome, because I'm right there. I can't write the big check, but I can give a little bit consistently. And that's just a giving principle, period. Is sometimes people think, and I loved how one of the ladies in the video was like, I just have this little amount, but when I add it with everyone else, then it's this big amount that God allows us to bless our ministry partners, and then do some additional things here. Some of the past projects that we've done here at Hope is refreshing our kids ministry and our nursery, and those things that that all impact how we're able to help families who are coming here, for them to discover and experience God's ways and respond to them. So it's exciting time.
It is. Speaking of time, how long have we been recording so far, Rachel? 1 hour 30, which is good. So this is a extra loaded episode of this,
the Relevate recap.
It's the Relevate recap, but it is also the last episode of season 3 of the Sunday
we did a
Extra
finale.
podcast.
We did the extra.
Yeah, so we got a little extra
Yeah.
in this one. So there are 6 Sundays left in the year. I'm looking forward to all of them at a different level. But this Sunday, I'm really looking forward to because there's the Thanksgiving lunch afterward. And pie contest. I found out, because I'm working with the volunteer who's over, the whole party, that finding the judges for the pie eating contest has been the easiest job she has had finding volunteers.
Right. Now, to clarify, not pie eating contest.
No,
because there was
pie making.
some
Sorry.
Confusion a week ago that it was
it's
pie
not pie eating. It's pie making.
Pie making.
The judges
How
will
many
be
apple
eating.
pies or pumpkin pies can you eat in 5 minutes?
So it wasn't
Yeah,
that. It was
how
like the
fast can
judging
you eat a
of the
pie?
pie.
The judging of the pie. So
Okay, cool.
you bring
The
your
judge,
pie.
okay.
Sorry, I misspoke.
Because eating contest.
Yeah, let's go.
That's a different animal.
Luke's like, wait a minute, why didn't I hear about this?
Wait, hold on.
I've done hamburgers. Now I'm gonna do pies.
Proper pie eating contest is always with your hands behind your back
and a face full of blueberries.
Yes, a pie in front of you, hands behind your back. You got to get the whole pie down fastest. Yeah.
So this is pie making, but to find the judges who will have to eat parts of the pie to judge the thing. That was the easiest volunteering recruitment ever, which I thought was hilarious.
They're participating in the
They're
ministry.
participating in the ministry. God
not the
bless
hard
them.
Hard attitude number 5, right there.
Yep.
So, Brian, does this mean we are not having a podcast to talk about the pies in the pie contest?
Well,
because
maybe.
I feel like
Maybe.
Yeah.
So since the name of the show is a Sunday Extra podcast, I can't say that there won't be some extras between now and the end of the year. But there's not a scheduled one to talk about. But there could be one about.
Kind of like whipped cream on the pie.
We could just open up the cameras and you could just watch us eat pie.
Maybe
watch our
if
viewers
there's any
fall off.
leftovers, maybe Jeremy and Luke can have the pie eating.
I
contest.
love how you volunteer.
Great. So this is the last episode of this. We'll be back for season 4 back in the new year. But I do know coming up over the last weeks of the year, we have some treats coming for you on the Sundays Not Extra. So we've got some guest speakers coming in. We've got some. We've got one last series around Christmas that's coming up, and then of course we've got our Christmas Eve service. It's on the 24th. I think it's on the 24th. The
Usually,
Christmas Eve service. Yeah. So we've got a lot of fun things coming up for us as a church. But until 26, or until we have a bonus episode, this is us signing off on season 3 of the Sunday Extra podcast.